Twitter Files journalist Matt Taibbi and MSNBC host Mehdi Hasan got into it on last night on his show. Hasan grilled Taibbi on whether he would criticize Elon Musk's reported censorship of content critical of Modi's government in India. Let's watch.
Would you like to criticize Musk now?
No, I don't particularly want to. Look, I didn't criticize him really before, and I think that what the Twitter files are is a step in the right direction.
But it's the same Twitter that he's running right now.
I disagree with him. If you want to ask, I think.
Understood, Matt. Well, I'll ask you a specific one.
No.
It's not in bad faith, Matt. Sorry. You say that Twitter. Hold on. Let me finish my question. You're saying that he's good for Twitter and good for speech. I'm saying he's using Twitter to help one of the most right-wing governments in the world censor speech. I will criticize that. Will you?
I have to look at the story first. I'm not looking at it now.
Hold on. I posted the story 2 weeks ago. You tweeted at me,
I don't watch the Mehdi Hasan show.
You do, actually you do, because you tweeted at me saying, invite me on the show and I'll tell you my views. Here you are. What is your view? There it is. There it is. Look. Yeah, and you said, look, we'll read your words. Why don't you invite me on your show to talk about it since you're so absolutely sure of what I'll say? You're right, I'm not sure. What is your view on Musk working with Modi to censor speech?
That's what you ask him about the particulars about it. But listen, this came up the first time. I think it was Twitter Files number 6 when you said after this was a big one that we had done.
Hasan also forced Taibbi to answer for several mistakes made in his Twitter Files reporting. Taibbi has since issued formal corrections on those errors, at least 2 of which I think are relatively minor. We'll discuss the third. Writing on Twitter, part of the job is facing critics and making corrections when appropriate. This is how we arrive at truth in a free press system. Today, I went on Mehdi Hasan to defend the Twitter Files precisely because MSNBC hasn't engaged in this process across years of Russiagate reports. For Mehdi Hasan to gloat over 2 minor errors while dismissing both the substance of the censorship story in the Twitter Files and the fact that those stories expose significant, uncorrected mistakes by his own network is incredible. I stand by my work.
All right. What do you make of this? You mentioned, you characterized a couple of these errors as minor and one as less minor. Which one are you talking about there?
So he made these 3 corrections. 2 of them are about which government body did what and what sort of temporal order, which are not central, in my view, to the point of the Twitter Files. And in a story this detailed, there are going to be mistakes. The third one is about the number of tweets that were flagged by government agencies in this story, and that seems to be a substance, and it was orders of magnitude off, right? But I think the point here is that Taibbi has corrected this, and he's firing back, saying, have you guys, has the legacy media corrected a lot more substantive errors and a much more like sort of high level errors over the last 2, 4, 6, 8 years of reporting? No, but here I am, an independent journalist. I will make these corrections publicly.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think it's completely fair for Mehdi to ask him about various errors, and I think it's very mature and shows a lot of integrity for Matt Taibbi to go ahead and just correct the record immediately and not try to argue down on those kinds of points. I do think that part of the issue here is that, as far as I saw in this interview, Mehdi didn't really acknowledge the broader significance of the Twitter Files. So it really did feel like it's not that you're not allowed to talk about errors, but it starts to feel like nitpicking in an effort to discredit a broader project when you haven't engaged substantively in that broader project. So I tend to side very much with Taibbi on that side of things. However, the question of Matt Taibbi's unwillingness to say anything critical of Elon Musk and to continue to characterize Elon Musk as good for free speech at the same time that Elon Musk is engaging in behaviors with other governments and other parts of the world that are akin to what is being criticized in the context of the Twitter Files does strike me to be a problem and a conflict of interest that is worth bringing up. Now, ordinarily, if an interviewer said to a subject, hey, what do you think about this story? And an interview subject said, well, I haven't read that story. I have to look into it before I respond. I would say that's completely fair, ordinarily. But in this case, Mehdi Hasan tweeted about Modi's censorship in India and Twitter's participation in it. Kind of jabbing at Taibbi, saying, well, I bet you won't ever say anything about this. Taibbi said, oh, you think you know I'm going to say about this particular story about Modi's censorship? Have me on, and I will talk about this particular story with respect to Modi's censorship. Mehdi has him on, and then Matt Taibbi wants to use the excuse of, well, I haven't looked at that particular story. This was not a gotcha question. If anything, he should have been prepared to address what he thinks about Elon Musk's hypocrisy on that particular issue. And Taibbi can say, look, I think that the Twitter files is a good thing. I think it's worth me engaging in the project. I want to maintain a good relationship because I think there is stuff of real journalistic value for me to report on. But no, I disagree with how Elon Musk is handling himself with his other government in India. But he didn't do that. And I think his repeated refusal to say anything bad about Elon Musk, including when Elon Musk kicked his partner, Bari Weiss, out of the Twitter files for criticizing Elon Musk pretty mildly over his choice to, again, censor those Elon Jet accounts in a way that really was hypocritical, is a problem for Matt Taibbi.
I think it's interesting to see this relationship between journalism and their sources, like journalists and his sources, play out in public time. It's the sort of thing that happens in legacy media all the time, except we don't get to actually see it behind the scenes, right? The line between wanting to criticize or write on a different story and knowing that you're going to tick off a really important source and that important source might not continue to give you tips and continue to give you material with which to write your stories. This is actually the story of journalism, and I think it's very healthy regardless of sort of which side of this you fall down on this particular spat. I think it's very healthy to actually see it playing out in public as opposed to, because this dynamic happens, you know this dynamic happens all the time. It's just we only see the final product story. And with this independent reporting, I think, for example, Glenn Greenwald was right in this tweet thread that we were talking about before the segment to point to the fact that these corrections were issued very quickly and openly by Taibbi. I know that's a different point than you were making about Modi. And was contrasting that with the fact that legacy media can run with a story that is blatantly false, like the Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinformation, did for years, and then not issue those kinds of corrections. I think that is the larger dynamic here. I agree with you that he obviously didn't want to criticize his source, though. I think that the substance of what you said is correct on that. That's my read of the situation as well.
I think that it's one thing not wanting to ruin your relationship with the source because you think the journalistic value of the materials that you're getting is such that it's worth it. You know, I'm not asking, Taibbi to poke the bear or randomly say, oh, Elon Musk got hair play. Like, I'm not asking, no, I think that would be irresponsible for someone to do that. I do think there's journalistic value to what he's doing, and I appreciate that Taibbi in some ways is in a tough spot. But part of why I think folks keep pressuring Taibbi to say something about things like this is principally because the Twitter project, the Twitter files as a project, is being framed not just, here's a source, they're value neutral, but the material is good. It's being framed as Elon Musk is a champion of free speech. He bought Twitter because he's a champion of free speech. He's doing the Twitter files because he's a champion of free speech. And it's investing the source with this kind of credibility and moral standing that is betrayed by his behavior in other contexts, whether it is censoring the Elon Jets account because he felt personally implicated by a journalist covering a story about the Elon Jets account he censored, or what he's doing in India, where the Indian government, this is from a report from April, I think this is the article that Mehdi Hasan tweeted out, the Indian government issued notices to Twitter to remove people in the aftermath of an internet shutdown in Punjab during the search for a fugitive Sikh separatist leader. Twitter has been accused of bowing to government pressure in India, blocking scores of prominent journalists, politicians, and activists from its platform in recent weeks. So you cannot simultaneously, as I would argue Matt has been doing, frame the Twitter Files project as at its core about free speech and Elon Musk as its director, as someone invested in free speech, without inviting questions about whether or not he truly has those incentives. And if he doesn't have those incentives, if he truly isn't invested in free speech as a principle the way he's been saying that he is, that Musk says he is, then is there some other aspect, some other dynamic of why he's releasing these Twitter files that doesn't undermine the integrity of Taibbi's reporting, but should raise some significant questions about why he's leaking what he's leaking, whether there is information that he's not disclosing, whether or not he's trying to be a free speech vanguard in America to cover up for certain other free speech violations that he's doing across the world, and whether we should have more scrutiny of this entire project.
I guess I both agree and disagree with what you said, because I don't think that the Twitter files, knowing what is in those files and the coordination between government agencies and big tech companies, I almost don't care why Musk released that information. I think it's really important information for Americans to know, regardless of what other machinations.
I don't care why he released it.
Yeah,
I care if he is not releasing something else, though, because his incentives aren't aligned with ours.
So I think there's I can't imagine the piece of information that would come out, honestly, that would undermine the existence of what is in those files.
Me either.
So that's why, I mean, I don't really care whether Elon Musk is a champion of free speech or not. I think, for example, that there is actually no neutral really here. There are always standards for speech on every single platform. What we're arguing about is the substance and how they're applied, right? So, like, I think most people agree that illegal, like, for example, child pornography should be censored on Twitter, right? And frankly, the tech companies negotiating with China, with India, with a bunch of other countries about how they're going to censor information, that's a whole topic unto itself. Mm-hmm. But I assume that Elon Musk will have some standards on Twitter. I think he has been remarkably transparent about what those standards are. Now, they keep changing because I don't think he's fully in control of every single sort of algorithmic change that's going on. He did take that step back, and I think he's kind of running to some extent a hostile organization, and I have all kinds of other thoughts about how he fired 70% of his staff, who's left. I think that itself is a very important discussion. But in any case, I don't think it's really important whether Elon Musk is a champion of free speech or not. What's really important here in Taibbi's and other reporting, like Barry Weiss and others on the Twitter files, is this communication between huge and powerful private tech companies and government agencies about which views should be placed in the digital public square and which views should be censored from it. And I think that's the underlying view that is not, that's the underlying point of the Twitter files that's not undermined by whatever Elon Musk's views are and how he works it out with Modi in India, and also not undermined by these errors in this story that have now been retracted by Matt Taibbi.
Here's what's so interesting about this to me. I think that Elon Musk saying, I have my own speech values, and I think that they map onto American constitutional values, and I want Twitter America to reflect those constitutional values. However, other parts of the world, we're a global company and we have to play ball to a certain degree, and that just is what it is. You can feel some kind of way about that. You can understand that. You can disagree with it, but it's honest. And from my perspective, if I were, in a position where Matt Taibbi was, and no one can say for sure, it seems to me that, it's a perfectly reasonable thing to say, look, I think that Elon Musk is having to play ball in different parts of the world. I think his values are true and accurate, and he is demonstrating that in the way that he's handling the Twitter files and handling Twitter US. I think it's perfectly fair for you, Mehdi, to criticize him on what's going on in India, and I hope that you were able to have him on a show and discuss it. But those are not choices that Taibbi is making. Taibbi is not even acknowledging. He's kind of feigning ignorance. The point at which he either forgot, which is kind of negligent from his perspective, to say yes to this interview where the invitation was literally about this Modi story. And so he either forgot about it or is feigning ignorance or didn't understand why the invitation. I don't understand how he could not be prepared to talk about that. But his failure to address what is exactly going on in what's going on in India, which is exactly what he's criticizing in America, and which Elon Musk is complicit in, I think starts to beg the question of if Taibbi is at no time willing to leverage even the most honest criticism of Musk, is he the best person to be looking through these Twitter files and making assessments of Twitter's behavior, not just in the past, but currently now? And again, I completely agree with you. That says nothing about the value of the documents. The documents are the documents. And I think this reporting has been excellent. But I have relationships with people from working in politics. I don't hesitate. I worked for Bernie Sanders. When Bernie Sanders has something I disagree with, when Bernie Sanders has a standard on Israel-Palestine and a two-state solution that I disagree with, I'm happy to say it. When Marianne Williamson has a foreign policy approach that I do not agree with, and I don't, I'm happy to say it. And it doesn't. undermine the good things that I like about those people or our relationships. And I think that's just, people have to work that out, what their lines are. I'm not expecting Taibbi to say everything that I would say, and I appreciate him wanting to keep a good relationship with Elon because the work he's doing is so important. But that aspect of the conversation with Mehdi looked in bad faith in a lot of it. But that aspect of it where he was completely unable to lobby even the most principled critique of Elon Musk doing censorship for the Indian government in India, I don't know.
Again, I think this is just the difference between playing out in public and playing out behind the scenes, because it's clearly I agree with you. He doesn't want to answer that question, very obviously. And I know that you asked him similar questions here, and he also wasn't. So I think he just wants to preserve a relationship with a source. And frankly, I think all of us is healthy that it's playing out in public. And I think that's the underlying, I guess that's my takeaway from all of this. I like seeing the retractions in public. I like seeing this like sort of line and being able to discuss it with you about like, okay, well, should we take into account with future reporting from Matt Taibbi that he really clearly values his relationship to Elon Musk and Elon Musk is a source for him? Well, I think that's totally fair for all of us to take into account. But I just generally think it's good that it's happening in public and not in like it does in the legacy media behind closed doors, where the average reader has no idea how to evaluate any of this information because they don't have it.
For sure. And if people haven't seen it, Glenn Greenwald has been tweeting about this morning, and he included a thread with a video, a supercut of all of the lies that have been told and have gone uncorrected on legacy media that really does push back against some of Mehdi's more petty critiques of the factual errors that Taibbi was so quick to correct on the record. So that does it all. That's all from us this week. Inez, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a real pleasure.
Likewise, it's been a great time.
All right. And of course, Robbie and I will be back next week. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who prefer to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.